Hey, it's Jarren. I'm happy that you're here and I hope you enjoy the video. I'm considering this the start of season 2 of my content here on YouTube, and for those of you who have been watching so far, thank you very much. A reoccurring theme in my life over the past few years has been moving, traveling, and relocating. In the past year, I've successfully completed a move across the country, again. I found a new apartment and continued to refine a few things related to myself and my work. But surprisingly, throughout all of this, there's been a pattern. Somehow, every time I move to a new place, I'm different. I act differently, I learn differently, and I even work differently. It's some sort of natural mindset that has made moving easier, more pleasant, and honestly, more exciting. And what I've come to learn is that when you're new in town, you're naturally inclined to learn, grow, and acclimate to your new environment as flexibly as possible. Your brain is eager to absorb new information and figure out all the stuff in your new environment. But what does this process actually look like? And most importantly, how can we learn from it? How can we make the most of these moments in our lives? Well, before I break it down, here's a word from the sponsor of this video, me. Enjoy this 15-second TikTok video of me opening a new office mat. It currently has 10 million views and 2 million likes.
I got a mat for my desk chair in my new apartment. It said, "Warning might rapidly expand. The edges are sharp. I'm so scared. Maybe it will be okay?"
Anyway, here's how it all started. The year is 2016, and I'm in Pennsylvania. I recently finished college, and I had a little bit of cash on hand and decided to take a few trips as frugally as possible. I installed a solar panel on the roof of my car for some of that good sunlight energy, and I hit the road. On my first trip, I drove to Toronto, Canada, and then the next trip I drove to Monterrey, Mexico. After that, I took a cross-country trip to California and back, driving of course, and a trip to San Juan, Puerto Rico. This one required flying for obvious reasons. As a traveler, your mentality is naturally one of curiosity. Wow, look at this interesting place and all of these things that are different from what I'm used to. I wonder what's over there. I wonder what that's for. I wonder if I'll make any friends or do anything interesting. Spoiler alert, you definitely will. But past that, there's a limit to how involved you can get. The reality is that there's no room for long-term relationships or deep involvement in a community. You can't participate in local politics or events 2 months from now. You can't be around to plant something, water it regularly, and stick around to watch a flower bloom. Unfortunately, tourism has its limitations. Now 2017 rolls around, I hop in my car and I move to Los Angeles. Long story short, I live in 3 different areas inside the sprawling metropolis, and for a brief moment in time, each time I move, I have that same sort of natural curiosity towards my new environment. Today, it's 2021, and I've moved 3 more times since Los Angeles. Now, I don't say any of this to brag. Honestly, moving has been enormously exhausting, and to some degree, it all happened out of necessity. Truthfully, up until now, I haven't been able to purchase decent furniture. Every desk I've owned has simply been a plastic folding table, and I slept on a floor mat for years. There are definite trade-offs. But back to the main point. After all of these experiences, I realized that my attitude was refreshed and renewed each time I moved. Sort of like visiting a different place. I was curious, inquisitive, and excited about the world around me in a different way than normal. After a couple of months, I would find my routine, learn something new, get comfortable, and that seemed to be the end of it. But then I'd move again, and that whole experience would start right back up. So first, what I'm going to tell you is what the process looks like in my life. And after that, I want to break down why it's so impactful and how we can take advantage of these rare moments in time. The process. Number 1 is pre-exploring. When I first discover I'm moving, tons of mixed emotions fill my heart, hundreds of scattered thoughts fill my head. But I brush all of that aside because the only thing I need to know is where's the nearest cafe going to be? No, seriously, I love the cafe culture, the food, the drinks, the energized environment. But past that, I genuinely want to see what sort of food options I'll have nearby. It's not a requirement by any means, but it immediately helps me imagine living in that new area. Where are the places I think I'll frequent? Where am I going to go to shop for groceries, and what can I do in my free time? Part 1 of the process is all about pre-exploring. In my free time, I scour Google Maps and local Reddit forums just to discover the best hidden spots and the freshest coffee around. I get excited before I even arrive. I anticipate the good things to come and I plan for the best. 2. Moving. This one is self-explanatory. I move all of my stuff from one place to another place. It typically takes a few hours to a few days depending on how much I'm moving and how far I'm going. This is often the first real experience I have driving around my new hometown. I start to get the lay of the land and I make note of key landmarks that seem interesting. I also figure out pretty quickly if parking is going to be an issue. In Los Angeles, the answer is always yes. Number 3, exploring. Once I've finally unpacked a bag or two, I start to do things. This could be as simple as visiting a few shops nearby, or something more strategic, like an event built around something I'm interested in. I take walks through local parks and streets and get to know my new environment. I'm actively exploring everything near me. I jot down little notes on my phone, just so I don't forget important details, and I'll even ask for recommendations from locals. I don't explore with only my eyes, but also with my ears. Overhearing a small bit of conversation from someone at a coffee shop can shed some light on the restaurant down the street, the local gym, or the party at the local game store. Absorb everything. Number 4, community. I can't emphasize enough how impactful events with like-minded people can be. Every time I found a way to spend time with people who share some of my interests, it's a fantastic starting place. My very first night in Los Angeles, I met people at an augmented reality meetup. It was a fun event and I got to use a Microsoft HoloLens, but I actually ended up building a relationship, a friendship with someone who was working at Disney Animation. I went and visited a couple times and we're still friends today. Past that, I even had a job interview with a company that was at the event, and they reached out to me. Whether it's an event meetup, a gym, a church, or a local park with community sports, there are always new ways to explore new relationships. Not to mention the jobs in the area. I worked as a barista for a time, and my previous coworkers are truly lifelong friends. There are also a few secondary details I want to mention. This exact approach is not the same for everyone. I'm an extrovert, so it's only natural that I go about this differently than an introvert would. That's okay. These are not rules written in stone, but simply a template that I've built from my own experiences. Honestly, online spaces can be a great starting place as well. Local Reddit forums or Discord groups are always interesting, and I've successfully made friendships and even found a roommate through Reddit one time. Now, if you're in a bad situation, moving can be a superpower. You can break off unhealthy relationships and you can redefine how you live your life. You can start from scratch. But on the flip side, moving doesn't fix you. As a matter of fact, it can also amplify internal problems. It typically does. But this can still be part of that superpower. This forced reflection can be very revealing. If problems follow you from one place to another, it's probably a sign that you should start looking internally and reflect upon yourself as a person. In the end, the structure has shown up time and time again in my life. The first time I moved, I struggled internally, and I had to wrestle with being in a completely new environment, still being the same person. But now, I view all of the change as a friend. And finally, the applicable element to this entire video is simply this. You don't have to move somewhere new just to be new in town. We as people find our routines, we get comfortable and we settle down, but as they say, comfort is the enemy of growth. There's a balance to be struck between comfort and growth, and sure, maybe you've lived in the same town your entire life, but that doesn't mean you can't go somewhere new and do something different. I grew up in a countryside town of 1,300 people, and there was always a new experience tucked around the corner. If I only had enough curiosity to take that first step, in those moments, it was like I was new in town. Now, if you stuck around this far, I'm sure you're considering how this mentality could make a difference in your life. Don't be afraid to spend some time in self-reflection and ask yourself what it would look like to be new in your town. I know I'm trying to keep this attitude for as long as possible, and each week I'll try to explore something different just for the sake of it. I am actively trying to be new in town, even though I've been here for a couple months. Lastly, I'm curious, what do you think about this sort of approach? Have you discovered your own techniques to help keep a fresh perspective? If so, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. And I will see you again in the next video.